I'd like to welcome everybody to the California Woods Nature Preserve. My name's Mike George. I'm a naturalist with the Cincinnati Park Board, and I've been with the park since '99. I kind of grew up in the area, so when I was younger I played in a lot of these parks too. Today we're at the California Woods Nature Preserve. This is a very interesting park because of its history. We're going to kind of go over the physiographic region here, the plant communities, a little bit of the geology. And then the settlement of this area, which was really, it started only a stone's throw from here. So California woods is what's known as the mixed mesophytic forest. And what that means is the plant community here, there are no one or two predominant tree species. A mixed mesophytic forest is one that there are many different trees. We can find oaks and maples, we can find hickories and walnuts, we can find all kinds of trees here, wild black cherries. Which was great for the inhabitants of this area because it meant that the forest offered abundance of resources, not only in the different types of timber, but in the fruits and nuts that they would have produced, some for food, some for tool making, cabinetry, some for medicinal purposes. Here comes one of your tunes.
And you probably want to get him.
So what's unique about this area here is the creek that you see flowing behind you. This is the last tributary to flow into the Little Miami River before it hits the Ohio River. And as such, this area was also extremely abundant in wildlife. The Native Americans took use of this fact, and right over this ridge, there was a settlement site, there was a Fort Ancient village there. So the Native Americans would have hunted. We know they hunted right in these grounds here. In the past, we have found arrow points, we have found spear points. So they used this. This was essentially their backyard. And it's not uncommon today. It would not be out of the question to find maybe an artifact on the hike today. So let's talk a little bit about the forest. The plant community that's here today is pretty close to what the pioneers, the Native Americans, would have been familiar with. Now, unfortunately, today we're dealing with a lot of non-native invasive species. But as far as the species, the tree species, the trees that are growing here today, the pioneers would have seen, they would have used. Here to your right, we have an American beech tree. This is a great tree for so many reasons. First off, in the fall, this time of year, the beech trees are producing beechnuts. It's the small seed of the beech tree. In time, they'll drop to the forest floor. They're edible. So you and I can eat them, but it's a great source of food for wildlife. With age, a tree this side, the interior has rotted away. They've gone hollow. And in this particular tree, we have a wild honeybee colony. It's on the left side, about halfway up. There's a cavity in where they're coming in and out of. So the honeybee is not native to North America. We brought it over. We brought it over for the honey production. The Native Americans called them the white man's flies. So that was kind of strange. The way the pioneers would have used these, they would have taken these trees, a tree this side, and they would have cut it down and then cut it into sections. And the fact that the tree was hollow, they could have kind of scraped out the interior a little bit, cleaned it up. Placing boards on the bottom and the top, they had a ready-made barrel to transport their goods or their grain crops. Yeah, so that's the American beech tree. Yeah. All right, we'll head on down this way. Another tree that was great importance very early on were the American sycamore trees. If you look up here behind us, you can see the American sycamore, the tree with the white bark. At the time of settlement, and even today, this is the tree that reaches the largest in circumference of all the trees east of the Mississippi. And just like the beech tree, with age, the interior rots away, it goes hollow. This was very important for the early settlers. A lot of people think when the settlers got here, the first thing they were going to do was build their log cabin. Not true. The first task at hand was really to get the crops in the ground if it was the right time of year. They had to get their seeds planted. So for a lot of these families, they might have found a hollow sycamore tree. They might have moved in there. They might have slept in it, lived in it, until they were ready to start construction on their cabin. We have an account of a sycamore tree that was growing on the banks of the Ohio. It was said to be about a mile downstream from the mouth of the Little Miami, which is not far from here. The tree was of an enormous size, and there was a crack in the side. It was said that a man could ride into this tree on horseback without dipping his head. He and the horse would disappear within the tree before exiting out the other side. we actually have an account of, is everybody familiar with Mount Ida? No. Has anybody been down to Mount Adams? Mount Adams, okay. So prior to being called Mount Adams, it was known as Mount Ida. Right? It was named Mount Adams in honor of President Adams when he came here for the inauguration of our observatory. It was called Mount Ida because the very first person to have lived upon that hill was a woman by the name of Ida, and she was said to have lived in a hollow sycamore trees on the flank of the hillside. So if you go up to Mount Adams today and you drive through Mount Adams neighborhood, you will see Ida Street up there. It's named in honor of her. Over here we have a remnant plant community that goes back to the time of dinosaurs. This is a Scouring Rush. And what's interesting about these plants, they grow in a wet environment. Rushes are round here, and they have a high silica content. The reason they were called Scouring Rush was you could take these, and if you had a cooking pan or pots, you could take it and actually use it to scour or scrub out your cooking implements. We see a lot of wood chips on the ground. This is called scaling, and this is evidence that one of the largest woodpecker in the forest has been here. Here in our forest, it's the pileated, some people call it the pileated woodpecker. When they chisel into the bark, they make these larger, longer, almost kind of rectangular indentations into the rotting wood. So, again, for any of you, if you're not from this area, I'd highly recommend you get out and check out our parks. We have a great park system here. California Woods is perhaps one of my favorites just for its raw natural beauty. French Park, where we've been before for other classes, again, yeah, another great hiking destination. Probably one of the cheapest dates you can find. So, quick note on how this California Woods, how the community of California got its name. During the Great Gold Rush of the 1800s, when gold was discovered in California, many people were flocking there to make their fortune. There were a group of men that had left New Jersey. They were on their way to these California gold fields to make it rich. The story goes, as they were passing through this region, they had an overnight here. They became enchanted with the natural beauty, the richness of this area. They decided that instead of traveling to California, they'd just stay here and make their fortune in real estate. So what they did was they named their new community California. They wrote back home, they told everybody that they had made it to California, and the name stuck. So everybody's probably seen like Animal Planet, right? Like Nat Geo channel, right? You know when they go down to the Amazon, they find all that really cool stuff, right? You're like, oh wow, that's so cool. All the cool stuff's in the Amazon, right? Okay, it's going on right here too. You just got to know. So, for example, some of the most common things. So again, I got two acorns here again, right? And I told you earlier that the trees here, there's two broad groups, red oaks and white oaks. Red oaks are a little bitter, white oaks a little sweeter. Squirrels, of course, are gathering these right now. They're putting them aside for winter. The red oaks hold up better over the winter when they're buried in the ground. They're a little slower to germinate. The white oak is sweeter, better to eat right off the bat. Okay. Now, in some years, the red oak only produces acorns every 2 years, white oaks every single year. Okay. The squirrels can actually differentiate the two just by smell. All right. So they know the best thing to do is plant the red oak ones, right? Stick them in the ground, eat the white oaks. Some years, though, red oaks aren't producing. You're only left with white oaks. So what they've learned to do, they know that, they'll smell it, they will go in and they will carefully incise the tip of the acorn, they'll chew off the embryo so it won't germinate, and then they'll put it in the ground so that it stays for the winter. All right? So that's pretty cool. All right? Here locally, we have there's an acorn weevil that chews a little hole in, eats out the nut meat, and these go hollow. We have a species of ant called the acorn ant, Leptothorax. The entire ant colony lives within the hollow acorn.
What?
That's so small.
Yeah, and they're tiny. They're tiny little ants. Occasionally you'll crack open an acorn, there's nothing in there but a bunch of ants running around. They're acorn ants.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's cool.
So again, in your backyard, pretty cool.